Welcome to The Point with Ana Kasparian. I'm your host, Ana Kasparian, and we have a great show ahead for you guys today. This week, we've been talking about Edward Snowden over and over again. It's the big story that will not go away because it should not go away. Of course, our civil liberties are being violated. The majority of Americans don't seem to care. In fact, at this point, the majority of Americans don't even think he did the right thing, which is absolutely disastrous for someone who gave up everything to go into an airport in Russia and basically not know where his life is going to end up. But we're going to talk about that today and whether or not we can get Americans to care about this issue. But before we get to all of that, of course, we're going to talk about Mos Def, who's trying to raise awareness about what's happening at Gitmo. We all know that Gitmo is horrible. We know that these prisoners, the majority of these prisoners, shouldn't even be there in the first place. But what's happening with this hunger strike within Gitmo, and why are people being force-fed? Then we're going to talk about Eliot Spitzer's return to politics in New York City. Does he have a chance? And we're also going to talk about something really stinky at Whole Foods. It's cheese that's laced with listeria. And of course, Wimbledon. Turns out that the winner of Wimbledon isn't attractive enough. And should we even have that conversation? Before we get to all of that, let's meet our panelists. Kelly Carlin, who is the host of the Kelly Carlin Show on SiriusXM, as well as her one-woman show, A Carlin Home Companion, and her podcast, Waking from the American Dream. Thank you for joining us.
I'm very busy. Thank God I made it here.
Dave Rubin is the host of the Rubin Report here on the TYT Network and the proud former owner of a Capital One credit card.
Yes, I am banning Capital One. And my $25 credit limit they gave me will no longer be used because of the Alec Baldwin. Because I just want them to issue a statement. They can back him or not back him, but the fact that they're ignoring everybody, including my several dozen tweets, not good.
Quick 30-second rundown of what Alec Baldwin did on Twitter.
So he had this tirade against this reporter who had reported that his wife was tweeting during James Gandolfini's funeral. It turned out actually not to be true. But then he went on basically like this big homophobic tirade and threatening to hurt the guy and all this stuff. And I just want Capital One to say something. In an age where everyone gets fired, and I believe in free speech, but just say something about it. Don't just ignore a good percentage of your
I like it. I like that you're holding their feet to the fire.
Trying.
And of course, Desi Doyen is our third panelist, and she is the co-host with Brad Friedman of the nationally syndicated Green News Report on bradvlog.com, as well as the panelist with the most appearances on The Point. Desi, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I like our regulars. You know, Kelly, you need to become a regular. What's going on? I mean, you've been on a few times, but not on enough.
I'm willing, I'm willing. I live
All
down
right.
the street, so just give me a call anytime.
Sounds good.
Well, let's just see how this one goes.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, I'm
it's a
evaluating
little
you
early.
and judging you, so keep that in mind. All right, so let's actually go ahead and go to the first video. We're going to talk about Americans and whether or not they care about our civil liberties being violated by the Obama administration. Let's take a look.
What I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
Now, of course, that was James Clapper lying in front of the Senate about whether or not Americans are having their private information collected. And Ron Wyden asked him very clearly, are you collecting information on Americans? And he said no. He lied under oath. However, he will face no consequences for doing so. At the same time, we have Edward Snowden, who is going to be extradited, possibly back to the United States, where he will probably be tortured by our officials. And he didn't lie to us. He told us the truth about what's happening to our civil liberties and to our privacy. Desi, I want to start off with you. Isn't this something that Americans should really be up in arms about, when in reality it seems like they either don't know about it or don't seem to care about it?
Well, absolutely. I think Americans should be up in arms about it. But, it's difficult for people to care about something that they don't know about. And what we have discovered through Edward Snowden's leaking of the NSA's surveillance activities, we've discovered that this is just the tip of the iceberg of this massive secret surveillance state. Other whistleblowers and other former NSA officials have come out and said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is much more going on that people would care about if they knew about it. And I think part of it also at work here is the corporate media. They're not really reporting on it. They're reporting what the government tells them they can't get access to what's going on about this. But when you have your media not covering these issues, or the media only covering the more sensational aspects of it, they're playing, where in the world is Edward Snowden, instead of actually covering the substance of these allegations. I think people would care if they knew.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that now the corporate media is obsessed with character assassination as opposed to the information that was leaked to us. And for some reason, people are very quick to forget about the fact that Edward Snowden gave a lot up just to share that information with us. He had a cushy job in Hawaii with a hot girlfriend. Okay, he's living the life. I mean, he dropped out of high school, yet he had this great life, and he was willing to let all of that go to basically live in an airport in Russia and not know what his future holds. It's a complete and utter disaster.
It drives me crazy that they don't see this kid as a hero, a true American hero, willing to risk everything of the American dream, really, in order to save us from our own government. And it drives me crazy watching the mainstream media discussing, is it Iceland, is it Venezuela, is it this, is it that? It's like, this is not the topic, people. But I think people are terrified. They want to know that they're going to be safe. They want to know that the government's going to take care of them like their daddy or their mommy. And so they are willing to kind of put their head in the sand about this stuff.
You know what, well, if we can jump back to the video for a second, there's a great episode of Seinfeld when they're saying, the more you're lying when you're talking to someone, the higher up on your face that you touch. And if you watch that video, Clapper is scratching the top of his head because he knows he's lying. He's flat out lying. So forgetting the Snowden stuff for a second, he should be, he's perjured himself, absolutely, and as you said before, he's not going to suffer at all because of it. And so this is actually hurting our systemic ability to govern also, because it's not just the leak, but now it's showing that you can also lie under oath and that there's going to be no repercussions.
Well, and you know he was lying because he used an interesting adverb, wittingly.
Wittingly.
Like, what exactly does that mean? Is it that they don't know, but they don't know in a way that's humorful?
Right, did he mean willingly?
What the hell does that mean?
And also keep in mind that he had time to prepare that answer. Senator Wyden had given him the questions that he would have to face ahead of time, and he was also given the ability to edit what he had to say afterwards. Which is incredible that you can censor yourself, you can edit yourself and make sure that you can lie, but you can do so in a way where you don't have to face consequences, because many political scholars have noted that it's actually possible that he won't face consequences because someone has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he lied and he knew he was lying. Wow. But the way that he worded it made it difficult to prove that.
Right, exactly. Wittingly. And you know what? When you're lying, a good way to do is hunch over the desk and you touch the top of your head and, wittingly, I was witting. Right, but these are the silly little games. Like, he knew, and then he placed a word in there just to deny the truth. Yep. And that's what we're dealing with. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Now, I want to give you guys some facts and figures that I found incredible. Huffington Post and YouGov did a poll of Americans to figure out whether or not they felt that Edward Snowden did the right thing. And here are the numbers. According to the new poll, 38% of Americans think that Snowden, a former contractor for the National Security Agency, did the wrong thing, while 33% said he did the right thing. Still, 29% of Americans remain unsure about Snowden's actions. And then you look at Democrats and Republicans specifically. Democrats said that Snowden did the wrong thing by a 46% to 26% margin. And of course, the reason why they're not in favor of it is because, it makes the Obama administration look bad. We like to play partisan politics. We don't like to hold our politicians accountable. And when it comes to Republicans, it's a similar thing. They're divided 37% to 37% on whether Snowden did the right thing in the previous poll. But in the latest poll, 44% to 29% margin saying that he did the wrong thing. So they're basically all agreeing, like, he did the wrong thing. And that was his number one fear, that he was going to risk everything in his life and Americans wouldn't care, which they don't, and that people would think that he did the wrong thing, when in reality, we need whistleblowers. We need to know what's happening within our government to hold these officials accountable.
But
That's what's remarkable to me about this entire revelation that Edward Snowden has brought to us, is that it is definitely along partisan political lines. It is almost a Rorschach test. People see what they want to see. You know, if they were against it when the Bush administration did it, but they're okay when the Obama administration did it, that's, you know, intellectually inconsistent with, you know, actual ideology and actual, I don't know, consistent principles of constitutional law.
Your personal morality,
yes,
even. Yes.
It actually can violate that as well. So it's been fascinating to see this struggle between, is he a hero, is he a traitor, shooting the messenger, shooting the reporters that are revealing all of this information. I mean, obviously some secrets need to be kept secret, you know, for national security, but the rest of this is really fascinating to see, even within the political left, the folks that are against each other and are fighting and saying, well, you know, this hurts the Obama administration, and the other one saying, wait a second, this is about what's right and wrong.
Exactly.
But you know, this is partly because we live in such a bipolar society where he's either a hero or a traitor. That's it. There's really no room for anything else besides hero or traitor. You know, can't possibly be anything else. But you know, there's a great video on YouTube, not that I want anyone to click away for a moment, of Sean Hannity, a compilation of him when Bush was president, saying that we have to have data mining and we have to protect everything, and now, of course, because Obama's president, doing the complete opposite. So that's also part of the problem, that again, our news sources are just force-feeding partisan stuff instead of having any honest debate.
You know, and I'm also wondering, is it that also that Americans are so exhausted by the economy and the fear of the future that we only have so much space in our psyche to handle big things that we have to think about, and it's like, oh, we're just trying to get through the day, and I'm trying to keep my job or trying to find a job, and now I have to think about this too.
Absolutely. I think it's really a combination of things. I mean, Americans have so much to worry about right now. We personally live in our little media bubbles where this is our lifeline. Like, this is what we focus on day in and day out. But for the majority of Americans, I mean, they're consumed with their families, with their jobs, just making ends meet. And so I do understand that it's difficult to pay close attention to issues like this and to hold politicians accountable. But I mean, that's the whole point of a democracy. You need political activism. You need Americans to get perfect information, which they are not getting because of corporate media. But hey, we have the emergence of new media, and if you really want to stay informed, you can do it. And I just want this political apathy to end in this country. We really need an uprising, and I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about, you know, civil disobedience to actually make change in this country.
Well, I think it was a lot easier though when we were fighting fascism instead of terrorism. I think because this is a fascist state we're talking about, or we're a slippery slope towards that. And I don't think people really remember the fear of that and what that is. I think we all have to, you know, read 1984 and all those great Russian authors and remember what we're talking about here, what it means to live in a police state. I don't think America has a history or memory of that right now.
Also, who is it that said that fascism's going to come with a big smiley face?
Yes.
Somebody said that.
I believe that was my father.
Was it your? No, was it really? It might have. Wow.
Actually.
That shows how much I love your father. But you know, that's the thing, because the left especially is so constantly enamored by Obama and everything that he does, they're afraid to step up and say you can't do this stuff. And because he has the smiley face, we still want to like him. I think that's, you know, if you just watch your Twitter feed, it's like people that I know that are intellectually honest still don't want to attack him because there's this feeling of, he's probably a nice guy, so I don't want to,
It's terrible. I actually want to focus on Republicans for a minute, because Republicans like to claim that they're in favor of small government. Yet when it comes to the NSA leak and when it comes to national security, they actually seem to love big government, right? They love the idea of the Obama administration or the Bush administration keeping the country safe, when in reality, we know that these tactics do not keep the country safe. I mean, when you look at drone attacks, they actually create a lot of hostility toward the United States, which probably inspires people to do terrorism to this country and to the people of this country. But what is it about these programs, these government programs for national security, that Republicans are in favor of, but then they're not in favor of things like, I don't know, social services for the poor? Dave?
I mean, this goes to the heart of everything that's wrong with the Republican Party. They want government so small that it can fit in a woman's uterus on one hand, so they can control that, and then which probably would hurt. And then at the same time, they want to control every little part of every, the minutia of your day. So it just goes to their intellectual dishonesty, and the fact that right now there's no party anymore. They're just this big thing that's kind of running against doing anything.
Well, I'll tell you what I think they're very consistent on is the military-industrial complex. So if it helps the military industry, if it helps industry, industrial suppliers of the military, then they are in favor of it, and they're extremely consistent across all subjects on that. So I don't think it has anything to do with the substance.
Too, in a way, because even now with this whole Egypt thing, everybody already is saying we have to keep funding the military. I mean, there was just a coup. They're afraid of saying it's a coup because that may stop some of the money flow, and it's all about keeping the military going and keep that whole thing funded.
And there's something about we're doing something about terrorism. See, we're trying to track them.
Look busy.
It's a tangible, looking busy kind of a thing, whereas diplomacy and connection and being good neighbors and having goodwill in the world, that's too mamby-pamby. We don't know how to do that thing. So there's something.
Canada?
Yeah.
I thought of Canada
There's
as well.
something there's something very concrete about that I think Republicans feel good about,
Yeah,
or that kind of
concretely
thinking.
shitty.
It's not necessarily Republicans, but that kind of mindset.
All right. Well, we got to take a quick break. Let's do that. And when we come back, we are going to talk about force feeding people at Gitmo. Welcome back to The Point. Rapper Yassine Bey wanted to show Americans what happens at Gitmo when it comes to force feeding. There are more than 100 inmates in Guantanamo Bay that refuse to eat, and about 44 of them are being forced to put tubes down their noses and get nutrients that way. And it's a horrible video to watch. It's very graphic, but with prior warning, I want to show it to you guys so we can have a discussion.
I really want to thank you guys for setting this up and even having the idea to do it. I really didn't know what to expect. I remember tubing in, and the first part of it is not that bad, but then you get this burning. I got this burning. And then it just starts to be really unbearable. It feels like something was going into my brain, and it started to reach to the back of my throat, and I really couldn't take it.
The failure to shut down Guantanamo Bay is a very sore spot for me, and it should be a sore spot for anyone who voted for Barack Obama, because that was part of his platform, shutting down Guantanamo Bay, and he failed to do so. Back in 2009, as many as 83 inmates were cleared to be released. That means that they were not accused of anything, no wrongdoing. They were cleared, but they are still behind bars today. They're being mistreated. They are not supposed to be behind bars, and regardless of all the disastrous activities that we've heard of at Guantanamo Bay, we have still not shut it down. And we haven't done it because of political reasons, and Democrats that voted for Obama should be furious. And I'm very happy that Mos Def did this video because it helps people visualize what's happening behind those bars. Now, Dave, when you saw that video, did it change your mind about anything? Did it make you feel anything?
Most of these things that we do, if we actually got to see them, we would stop doing. It's like the death penalty. If you actually showed someone getting the lethal injection or being electrocuted or however else we do it at this point, which I'm not sure, Texas probably has 30 other different ways, we would not want to do them because they're so inhumane. What I find particularly bizarre about this, though, is since when can't prisoners go on hunger strike? When did we take away their right? That's sort of the most innate thing that they can do to show any level of human right left, And now we're not even letting them do that. What's the difference? If we let them, is it just that the media will jump onto this, oh, now they're in day 30 of this, and that we're going to lose our moral authority? Because we've pretty much lost it already for all the reasons that you're describing.
I mean, there are currently 30,000 prisoners in California alone that are undergoing a hunger strike because of indefinite detention. I mean, there are people, I'm sorry, not indefinite detention, solitary confinement. They're being put in solitary confinement for decades, and these California prisoners are protesting so they can at least have a 5-year cap. Can you imagine being put in solitary confinement for 5 years? Like, that's what they're fighting for, because these people are being put in solitary confinement for 10 years. I know that's a bit of a tangent, but I think it's symbolic of what we're seeing in this country and what we stand for when it comes to the police state, when it comes to imprisoning people. I mean, the thought of imprisoning people, 83 of them, after they've been cleared years ago, just makes me sick to my stomach.
I'm embarrassed. I am so embarrassed for this country. It's confounding to me, absolutely confounding. And no wonder nobody respects us, and no wonder people are pointing to us. And this just creates more hatred towards our country, and it shows what democracy is, the sham it is at this point. I mean, that's all I can say.
What goodness has Gitmo given us? You know what I mean? I don't think, does anyone know of any tangible proof that we got information out of anyone that was there being treated differently than they would have under a civilian court?
All it's doing is it's like isolating these people so they can't go out back into their culture and spread hatred. Well, it's already happening.
It's already happening. And the thing is, I mean, I'm not giving Obama a pass, as you guys know, but part of the reason why he doesn't release them is because it's political, right? What are you going to do? You're going to release them. They're going to go to the Middle East, and they're going to join terrorist organizations, and then they're going to come after us. But wouldn't you feel a little bit of sympathy for them if they decided to do that? Not if they actually went through with terrorist attacks, but we've mistreated them so badly that, I mean, you can't blame them for wanting retaliation.
Well, yeah, there's no exit for them right now. The only exit that they have is death, and I don't think that saying, it's going to be used as a partisan political cudgel against Obama if he, with a stroke of his pen, which he can do, release those 86 prisoners that have been cleared. It's not like we're going to find out suddenly that we're going to have this new information from them, or if there's going to be a partisan political attack against him for releasing them. That's not a good enough reason to hold on to them. I mean, the idea that we are keeping these people alive in order to hold them indefinitely is both inhumane and insane.
But think about it. He ran against Bush saying, I'm going to close this thing that Bush started. Then he ran on re-election saying, I'm still going to close it because I couldn't do it in the first 4 years. And then just a month ago, he gave that big speech about how he was going to close it. So the guy talks a big game, but nothing has changed. As you said, literally, it's a stroke of the pen. This isn't a big governmental hurrah.
And what's the long-term plan here? They're going to keep force-feeding these guys?
I don't know what the long-term plan is.
I mean, what kind of plan is that? It's very interesting.
So let's, just one final question on this topic. I'm curious to see what you guys think about a celebrity bringing attention to this story. I mean, Desi, do you feel that it's appropriate for Mos Def to do a video like this, or do you feel like it's gimmicky? There's been a few people who have criticized him for being gimmicky about this.
I think absolutely it was the right thing for him to do. If, as you can see, he's getting a lot of, not publicity is not the right word, he's bringing a lot of awareness to this, to a lot of people that would not have known about it otherwise if it hadn't been someone as prominent as Mos Def. And I think that, I happen to like him. I think he's a genuine, honest and authentic person with the what he's tried to present in this. And I think that watching it, as Dave said, if more people saw this and understood what's going on, they would be against it, and I believe would make a bigger clamor to stop this.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing funny about that video or fun about it. I think he actually was trying to use his public persona to do something good.
All right, are we unanimous?
Yeah, if you're going to create a celebrity culture, then celebrities got to have power to inform the public.
Yeah. And I like that. I like that a celebrity is using his popularity to raise awareness about a very important issue. All right, well, let's move on to Elliot Spitzer. Elliot Spitzer is trying to make a comeback. He is planning on running for New York City Comptroller, and he needs 3,600 signatures in order to get on the ballot. It seems like he will get those signatures, but is this really his moment of redemption? Let's take a look.
I think Elliot Spitzer deserves another chance at being a politician. Just like any other politician who's ever did anything wrong and got another shot. Let him have another shot too.
Actually, I think he would be a very good man now that I think about it deeply, because I would much more forgive Spitzer than I would Wiener.
I feel he should get a second chance because he's really good at what he does. He's like a fallen hero. And the mistake he did does not mean he's going to make mistakes in other domains, because domains are not necessarily correlated. And for a politician, he's doing a great job. He did a great job.
All right, it's great to hear from New Yorkers. And of course, it was a little one-sided. There are many New Yorkers that don't agree with that. They feel that he did something illegal. And keep in mind that when he was a prosecutor, he went after prostitutes and, basically any type of organization that solicited prostitution. So I want to hear from the panel. I want to know what you guys think. I mean, obviously we're very liberal, so I feel like we're going to be sympathetic or more sympathetic toward him. But I do want to note that he did a pretty good job when it came to going after Wall Street. He was one of the few politicians that did that, and that's the reason why he got targeted. That's the reason why people were digging for dirt. They found the dirt and they got him the hell out of there. Kelly, do you feel like he should have resigned in the first place?
I think in the way politics works, probably yes, you kind of have to play that game. He could have fought it. He could have tried to, tough it out and everything. But I don't know, there's something also great about the redemption story, and we do love to redeem our fallen heroes in this country as much as we love to pull them down. So, and I hope that he's learned something as a man and learned something as a politician and how to purport himself in his personal life and his public life.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that lady. I mean, I think this could be great for New York because, first off, everyone deserves a second chance. Politician, regular person, whatever, number one. But number two, he's already done something wrong. He's already publicly been shamed. There's a good chance that he is going to be the most upstanding, I really believe that it may cause him to really and truly be the most upstanding and honest politician or comptroller as he can possibly be. So I think and he was en route. People were saying he might run for president one day. So this is a guy who had just become governor, who Wall Street was afraid of. That's the other thing, is that they're saying that the media is going to turn against this guy, not because of the sex scandal, but they don't want anyone that's against Wall Street getting back in the game. So I think this could be all good.
I think that's really part of what's going on with the complaints about Spitzer getting back in, because Wall Street is definitely scared of him. And if he does win this comptroller seat, that has some serious muscle behind it. He would be the one that audits the city's contracts, and that's billions of dollars going on there. Audits the city's pension funds, another billions of dollars, and he's talking about using the position of the pensions as shareholders in many of these large corporations to make some shareholder resolutions. So there could be some big changes coming up, and I could see why the Wall Street folks would be upset about that. What I personally hope that happens here is that this is the end of the double standard for Democrats who have sex scandals. Because we know, like, for example, Senator David Vitter of Louisiana, Diaper Dave, going to prostitutes wearing diapers.
I know.
He never stepped down. He had his obligatory tearful press conference, and then it was as if it never happened.
But why is that? I mean, Democrats don't run on family values, so they're not even being hypocritical. And don't get me wrong, I get that prostitution is illegal. I don't think that it should be illegal, which is why, his cheating on his wife sucks as well. Believe me, I'm not trying to belittle what he did, but at the same time, that has nothing to do with his ability to be governor or a politician. I thought that he did a pretty good job. The hypocrisy of going after prostitutes really got under my skin as well. But the reality is, if you have a politician that's going after Wall Street, you have my support, because not many politicians are doing that. Now, some of his critics are arguing that, he comes from a wealthy family, and that's how his campaign's going to be funded. You know what? That sounds pretty damn good. I would much rather have him be funded by his family as opposed to corporate sponsors.
I'm pretty sure there's a guy named Mike Bloomberg in New York City who's also independently wealthy, who decided to change term limits so that he could get a third term in the first place. Yeah. So I don't think being independently wealthy is something that New Yorkers look at and go, not voting for this guy.
Yeah. So what do you guys think a politician would have to do in terms of a sex scandal for it to be over? There's no chance for redemption. Kelly?
An animal?
It's the slippery slope of gay marriage.
It's the slippery slope. It's all that's left. And especially if it's a cute animal, they're screwed.
Over. Yeah. We just recently did this story on the Young Turks about this guy who got caught having sex with the same horse twice within a 3-month span. Like, he got out of jail after he had sex with the horse the first time, and then had sex with the horse again, and then went back to jail. I mean, it's incredible.
All I can think
But I'm
about
not
is
saying
Gene.
any politician
Now
is
he's
involved in
running
that
for
kind of
mayor
activity
of
right
his
now.
town, yeah.
Gene Wilder and Desi, that's all I have to say.
All right, we have to leave it at that. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, Whole Foods is known for really tasty cheese, right? And really tasty products, but it turns out that one of their products has listeria. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. Welcome back to The Point. You know what? I'm really happy that the Young Turks doesn't pay me enough that I can buy fancy cheese at Whole Foods, because it turns out that one product, one particular type of cheese, has listeria. Let's take a look at the video.
Whole Foods Market is recalling a line of cheese after a listeria contamination killed one person and put several others in the hospital.
Bacteria in Crave Brothers Lafrere product has already killed at least one person.
It was sold in at least 30 states and should be thrown away immediately. Crave Brothers cheese. Be careful.
According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, 5 people with the same strain of listeriosis have been hospitalized across 4 Midwestern states. Listeriosis is a serious illness caused from ingesting bacteria known as listeria, which can be found in poorly processed deli meats and unpasteurized milk products. Listeriosis causes gastrointestinal symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain, along with fatigue and muscle aches.
Every time I go to the grocery store, in my mind, I'm thinking pick your poison, and I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm like, okay, what is going to have a recall this month? And every month it seems like there's something new. You know, Trader Joe's peanut butter, E. coli in our lettuce, fecal matter in our lettuce. I mean, every month there's something new and something different. And Desi, what the hell is going on? Like, is this just something that's inevitable because there's a breakdown in the supply chain, or is there something that we could be doing with regulations, but we just refuse to do so?
Well, I think that with industrialization comes contamination. It's almost impossible, I think, to produce at this high volume that we have throughout our industrial food system without having some sort of area where infection or other kinds of bacteria can get in. Pathogens have multiple opportunities to go through all of our food supply. But one of the interesting things about this particular recall is that it actually shows that some of the new systems being put into place are actually working. The Centers for Disease Control said that the Minnesota state officials who first identified this outbreak actually did a great job because they were going in advance of the nationwide reporting system. They saw these reports coming up and they went from 2 reports to actually investigating further, and they found this listeria cluster and were able to identify it before it killed more people. Listeria is a slow-moving infection, and so it can take weeks and weeks and weeks, and many more people can die before it's identified, and they really did a good job with this.
What do you think about the FDA? I mean, there have been multiple stories about how the FDA continues to get defunded. We keep passing deregulation of the food industry. I remember years ago reading a story about how the FDA was allowing the poultry industry to regulate itself and do its own testing of its meat. And I mean, I thought of its chicken, and I thought that that was very, very questionable. Is that kind of stuff still happening today, or have we gone through with some steps to mitigate that?
It's both. We have done a few steps. The Food Safety Modernization Act was passed, and it has done quite a big change for the FDA, giving them authority to actually make recalls instead of requesting that manufacturers make recalls. But on the other hand, industry is putting a very huge push on both the USDA and the FDA under what's under their jurisdictions, which are separate. They're doing a huge push, a huge lobbying push to bring in more self-regulation. So every time we have a step forward, we also have 2 steps back from industry pushback on this.
Dave, do you feel like we're doing enough? I mean, do you feel that the food that you're buying is safe and we're just making a big to-do over nothing?
I mean, the fact is, in this case, one person died. Something is always going to get through, one way or another. No system is going to be perfect. And yeah, you can be somewhat conscious of the things that you buy and hope that you're buying from the, even if you were doing farm to table, there's a chance that the egg, between the time it gets to the farm and over to the house, something could happen. You know, you could put it on a plate that had raw chicken on it and something could happen. So nothing is perfect. And when we have this giant system, and Whole Foods is a giant company that gets from many different suppliers and all that, I mean, it's bound to happen every now and again. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
Kelly, do you think people are going to care about this story as much as they did about Trader Joe's peanut butter? I mean, it seems like this is a bit of a wealthy people problem. So maybe you'll see more action because all of a sudden this is impacting people that buy expensive cheese, you know, that they have more power than the middle class.
I think there might be a little bit of that, like people going, oh, those people deserve it or something like that. But, I was in Whole Foods the other day and I think, oh, this is the healthy food place. And then I go to their buffet and I got the mashed potatoes and there was so much butter in the mashed potatoes. I'm like, this is going to kill me eating this.
Oh, I love that buffet. I love it.
I know, it's fantastic.
One morning I went for a jog, then I did yoga. I'm like, yeah, I'm on a health kick. And then I stopped by the buffet and this is in the morning, they had like bread pudding for breakfast. I was like, no, and it had like condensed milk all over it. It was so good.
It's really, really good.
Anyway, that was not meant to be an advertisement for Whole Foods, but you're totally right.
I'm not sure it was.
It is. You walk into that place and you're like, you're privileged just to walk in there. It's like you got to have $100 just to walk out of there. I mean, it's
pretty pricey.
They say whole paycheck.
They do. They say whole paycheck.
Because it's true, definitely.
Yep.
All right, well, let's leave it at that and move on to Wimbledon. So French tennis player Marion-Bartoli was the Wimbledon champ of the year, but it turns out that one BBC reporter thinks that maybe she's not attractive enough. Let's take a look.
Got all these different routines and funky strokes, and then you just are amazed that she has energy left at the end of a match because she expands so much, swinging and boxing.
Well, I just wonder if her dad, because obviously he's been the most influential person in her life, I just wonder if her dad did say to her when she was 12, 13, 14 maybe, listen, you are never going to be, a looker. You are never going to be somebody like a Sharapova who's going to be. You're never going to be 5'11". You're never going to be somebody with long legs. So you have to compensate for that. You are going to have to be the most dogged, determined fighter that anyone has ever seen on the tennis court if you're going to make it. And she kind of is.
She is. I mean, you look at her and you get the sense that she's a street fighter when she goes out on the court.
What? Okay, that was John Inverdale, and he works for the BBC, and he was the one who made the ridiculous comments about her looks. And I don't really know what your physical appearance has to do with your ability to be a great tennis player, but apparently that's a very, very important factor when you're talking about female athletes. Kelly, do you feel that he is guilty for making these statements? He did apologize. He feels like people misinterpreted what he had to say. Do you agree with him or believe him?
I would like to kick the man in his nuts. Truly. I am. The logic he uses there, like you have to be attractive to be a good tennis player. This makes me very angry as a woman.
The father told her that she is very unattractive. No, what?
Yeah.
Well, like, did you want her father to have a conversation like that with her? And if he did, he's the worst father on the planet.
I just want to tell women, stay away from this man. This man does not like women or has some really screwed up ideas about women. Oh.
Allow me to slightly defend him without being smacked. I'm going to keep watching that.
This is an all-women
I'm going to do
panel. You better watch it.
A slight defense. Yes, the idea of a looker, bad comment. But what I think he was trying to say was that you're not going to have long legs or have the typical
or a tight
build
butt.
or
right,
or the big but then what he was trying to say is you're not going to have the typical build of what a prototypical female tennis player is like, so you better work the hardest and be the gruntiest, whatever.
That would have been nice if he said that.
He started off with, you will not be a looker.
So
you are not a looker.
And again, this was I'm giving him a tepid defense at best.
We need a devil's advocate, so I like it.
So that line, throw that line out, but the idea that, look, if you are a basketball player, and let's say you're someone that's 6'2", you're like Steve Nash, who's a point guard, who had to learn how to play a little bit differently because he had to shoot the ball higher so that he wasn't getting blocked. So there are things that you're physical. So that is not. I'm
it's
getting
a little
Desi's
stretching going on.
Yeah, it's very different than saying you're too short to play with everybody else than saying you're too ugly to play with everybody else.
Right. The looker line was the killer here.
Yeah, and and I think that what I really am happy to see about this particular episode is definitely not what the sportscaster had to say, but with the outrage that came out almost immediately afterward. I mean, we all as women know about everyday sexism that you see every day on the street, at work, everywhere that we go. We have that to deal with. If you're a girl and you don't fit the standard male definition of what you should look like, then you're kind of seen as being at a loss, and that's really unfortunate, and it's something that is gradually starting to change. So I think that that's a a good and positive sign out of this particular sportscaster who I think appears to have run out of things to say.
I was going to say that. I think he was tired and had probably been talking for 2 weeks straight and might have run out of things to say. And, I get that, but really, oh boy.
Yeah.
But you know what, also, we all, as people that talk for a living, sometimes you start saying something, and then literally as it's coming out of your mouth, you realize, oh God, this is actually, I'm actually saying this, and I think that's a little bit of what started to happen there, just a little bit. Again, not defending the idea. Yeah. But I think he started saying something, and then it just sort of unfurled into something else.
It is very easy to say something that is not PC, that can be misinterpreted if you do speak for a living. I know I've had experience with that before, where I said something that I didn't mean to be offensive, but then it of course turned out to be offensive, and I was apologetic about it. But in this case, when you started off with looker, you are not a looker, then I feel like it's difficult to really defend what you had to say. And as a woman, I definitely do feel it, Desi. I like that you brought that up. Regardless of what you do, it doesn't matter if you are like serving coffee or if you are a physicist, there's always this emphasis on your looks, and it gets really frustrating because you get evaluated on it and people base your value on it.
Well, and there's even a psychological unconscious bias that more attractive people do better in life and are more successful in their job because people want to be around attractive people.
And also, to completely contradict everything I said before, look, the fact is, if he was an ugly guy, this guy would have never said this. You know what I mean? So that does make your point. If it had been an ugly guy, the guy would have said, oh, when he was a kid, he was so ugly. His mom would have had to sit him down and been like, you're ugly, you better work really hard at tennis. So, Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. And when we come back, off their feed, we're going to take the best tweets of the week and we're going to respond to them. So stick around. Welcome back to The Point. Now we are going to do Off Their Feed, where we take the noteworthy tweets of the week and we respond to them in a very concise way. Let's start off with Andrew Sullivan, who says, "End aid to Egypt and Israel. The first doesn't deserve it. The second doesn't need it." Is Sullivan right that it's time to rethink our aid to these two countries?
I would say meh. It's like you're combining two things that really right now are so disconnected in reality that I can't give it more than a meh.
I think it'd be a great world if we didn't give any money to the Mideast.
Desi.
Andrew Sullivan starring in Political Fantasy Island.
The foreign aid is not for other countries. It's because the U.S. loves its allies. It's actually for us and our self-interest. Moving on to Mediaite TV, Zimmerman attorney tells Pierce Morgan acquittal could anger a lot of people. Quote, "My client will never be safe." Should we feel sorry for George Zimmerman? Kelly.
Bah.
Oh, I love these one-word tweets.
Well, hopefully he'll live in an area with a good neighborhood watchman.
Love it.
Then he'll be safe, you see.
Yeah. There are no happy endings here. Those died the night that Trayvon Martin died.
All right. Mike Tyson says, "Everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth. Watch what you say and who you say it to today." Is Mike Tyson threatening the entire internet?
2 words, Michael Spinks. Did you ever see that 3-second fight? I mean, don't mess around with Mike Tyson.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm hiding my ears.
You took my tweet. I was going to say that. Billy Corbett of ESPN's 30 for 30 says, "I'm thinking that anybody who would eat at Golden Corral doesn't really care how the food is stored." Recently, an employee at a Golden Corral in Florida released a video on YouTube that shows that during food safety inspections, that particular restaurant likes to store its food next to the dumpster so officials don't see it and test it.
Why not just cut out the middleman and serve it out by the dumpster?
In that case, you could just serve it by the toilet.
I'm just nervous about a restaurant called the Golden Corral.
Fair enough. All right, Mark Leggett, he is a Twitter-based funny man from New Zealand, says, "Poor Stacy Keibler, what man will have you now?" Turns out that George Clooney and Stacy Keibler broke up. I feel so bad for them. They're both like so unattractive. How are they going to find other people?
Hi, George.
For real, though.
Yeah. I'm just going to retweet that because I want that to happen. I want a Kelly Carlin, George Clooney.
We'll have to make some negotiation with Bob, my husband, but
I'm sure
he's
that
on my list. By the way, George, you're on my list. It's okay.
I was going to say, poor Stacy Keibler, poor George Clooney. Does he think he can do better?
Yeah, I know. She's gorgeous.
Yeah,
she is.
and smart.
So pretty.
Yeah, she's fantastic. He's a dummy.
The House of Cards actress Constance Zimmer says the following: a nun with a gambling problem, who's going to jump on those movie rights first? There was a nun by the name of Mary Ann Rapp who actually stole $128,000 from 2 different churches to feed her gambling addiction, which I find kind of sad. I feel bad making fun of her. She's going to serve 90 days in prison, and she also has to do 100 hours of community service, which, I mean, her entire life was dedicated to community service, so I don't know if that makes sense.
There's 2 tweets here, one of which is she made a huge gamble when she married Jesus. Ooh. And the other one is basically being a nun is like living in a cell and doing community service, so her life isn't going to change at all.
Well, I know Whoopi Goldberg's been looking for a new movie to do, so I feel this would be a perfect role for her.
And you can always follow me on Twitter.
All right, guys, that does it for Off Their Feet, and that does it for The Point. I want to thank my panelists. Desi, Doyen, can you tell the audience where they can watch your awesome show?
Yes, they can hear our syndicated radio program on energy and environment news at Green News Report on Twitter, and find us at greennews.bradblog.com.
Excellent. Dave Rubin.
YouTube.com/Rubin Report, and I'm an addicted Twitterer at Rubin Report.
Yes, he's verified and everything. Your tweets are awesome. You're so dedicated. I wish I was as dedicated.
It's a labor of something.
Yeah, my tweets are usually responses to people that I don't like. Yeah, it's not good. Kelly Carlin.
People can find me at kellycarlin.com, and I too am a addicted Twitterer with Dave. We hang out
we
on
met
the
on
Twitter. We did.
All right, sounds good. I'm Ana Kasparian. You guys can watch me on the Young Turks Monday through Friday on youtube.com/TYT. We go on air live 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time, so make sure you check it out. We will be back next week with another episode of The Point, so have an awesome week, and we'll see you soon.